Let me know when you're okay.
Recording
Good?
now. Yep.
All right, sounds good. All right, so let's do linear search together. And we're going to review everything from start to finish, including what GitHub is, how to fork, how to clone, how to push, how to write pseudocode, which I'm pretty sure we haven't started yet, but that's what we're going to do today. So we've got Mike Platoon here, and I've got one. My first volunteer is going to be James. James. I'm going to be asking you a series of questions. So what you're going to do is you're just going to unmute, and we're just going to have a conversation about GitHub and Git, and we're going to see how much you know. And it's just a little bit easier than one person unmuting and remuting and then waiting for other people to talk. It's a little bit of a waste of time. So James, please unmute, and let's talk a little bit about how you felt about this challenge here.
Okay. Linear search.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I thought it was one of the shorter, if not maybe the shortest challenge outside of the factorial challenge. Maybe
Yep.
that was shorter actually. But I thought the linear search was pretty straightforward for me, just understanding the fundamentals of a loop and being able to access the indexes where you need to, and then compare those indexes to the value, and then figuring out what to return, what the algorithm's asking you to return. That's kind of how I approached it.
Cool. Tell me a little bit about, like, this is weird. Like, what is GitHub? Tell me a little bit about what you know about GitHub.
So GitHub is an actual website that uses the Git command line tool. You can use the Git command line tool to interface with GitHub, but GitHub just basically hosts. It's kind of like a Google Drive for your code, but with a lot more functionality. You can work on projects in parallel with other developers. You can check out branches to do feature development. You can roll back commits to earlier times, so you can if you mess something up or you want to work on a different commit, for some reason change something, you can do that. So it's a very robust tool.
Sure. Yeah. So let's just recap a little bit about what James said. That is 100% right. So GitHub is just a site that just has Git in the name. So Git and GitHub are two separate things. Git, G-I-T, is version control software that's built into your machine to basically control the versions of any particular bit of code that you have. What you'll notice here is that if you take a look over here, there are 19 commits. So using the Git command line tool and Git version control, I'm able to basically keep track of different versions of this throughout the year. So when I first started in January, I added linear search in January 2017. And what you'll notice is GitHub keeps track of all my Git versions, and they have a fancy little message on each one so that I can read through each individual commit and know exactly what's happened. So I fixed the README 6 days after I initially committed it. I did the README again a day later. Kara decided to update the README Markdown, which is probably great. She made a patch, which means she made an update, and I was like, okay, that looks good, so I'm gonna merge it in. And you can kind of keep track of all the different versions that I've had, and that's what GitHub does for me. GitHub and Git are not the same thing. Git is just version control software, and GitHub is a company. It's a company that's owned by Microsoft. I think it was bought out for, well, let's find out. GitHub purchase price. Microsoft acquired it for $7.5 billion 2 years ago. So this is mostly where a lot of companies will host their actual repos. All of their code is going to be living right over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fork this repository. And James, tell me a little bit about what forking actually does.
Yeah, so when you fork a repo, it will actually duplicate the the code library or the repository on your GitHub account, but you still will have to pull it down to your local machine to work on it.
Exactly. So what you'll notice is I'm on tab number 1 and number 2 at the top here. So right now, linear search lives at Mike Platoon. And that's kind of like where we consider our source of truth to be. We don't want to push to Mike Platoon just in case we like mess anything up. I used to give write access to students, but what would happen is they would push up by accident their entire solution to Mike Platoon, and then everyone would be able to see it, and then everyone, when they cloned it down in the future, would basically be writing to and from Mike Platoon. So what we're going to do is we're going to fork it, and the act of forking is basically making the copy from my Platoon into your particular username. So you'll see me, I'm jyoung217, and I've made a copy. It no longer lives at Mike Platoon's linear search, but now it lives at Jay Young's linear search. So whenever I write and read to it, it's writing and reading to this photocopied version and not the original. So we're gonna do what James said. He says, right now you can't actually edit this, like, well, I guess you could, but it's easier if you download it or you clone it from GitHub and bring it down to your computer. So I'm gonna click the green button for code, click this to copy it to my clipboard. I'm gonna jump over here, and then I'm going to start running through a series of commands. So if you don't already have it, I'd recommend either at your root folder, which is this little squiggly over here, or on your desktop, to create a code folder. Oh, whoops. Okay. So let me list out everything that I have on my desktop. James, what's the command to list out everything on my desktop?
You could just do, well, if you want hidden files, it's ls tac la, but ls.
All right, let's take a look. Everything that's on my on my desktop, ls basically says list all the things that are inside of there. So I've got code platoon, FizzBuzz. Let me remove FizzBuzz because I was doing that last night. How do I create a folder? I want to create a folder called code for today. And this is where I recommend for every student so that you have one central place, one central folder for all of your code. How do I create a folder?
mkdir.
Okay, make
and then
directory. And I'm going to just call it code. All right. And when I list out everything again, you'll see that before there wasn't a code folder, but now there is. So I want to move from where I'm at. Currently, I'm inside of desktop, but I want to move to the code folder. How do I do that?
CD code.
CD code. And if I list out everything, obviously I just created a folder called code. There should be nothing inside of it. Now I want to clone down my linear search from the web and bring it down onto my machine. What is the command that I need to use for that?
Git clone and then paste in the link from the clipboard.
All right, git clone and then that. So what you'll know is that every single git command is prepended with the word git. Pretty simple. Anytime you need to do anything that revolves around git, you're gonna type in git first. So basically this is saying, hey, git, clone down this particular repository from the web and bring it onto my machine. You'll see that earlier when I listed everything inside of the code folder, there was nothing there, but when I relisted again, there's linear search over here. So again, I'm gonna cd into linear search. I'm gonna open that folder inside this current code window. Do you know how to do that one, James?
Yeah, you can do code-r and then the name of the file.
Yep. I'm just gonna open this entire folder inside of here. So I've cd'd inside of linear search. That's the thing that I just copied down from the web. Clone is the same thing as download. And I'm just gonna write code space -r space dot. So inside of the current VS Code window, open everything. You'll see this refresh. And you'll see here on the left side, we have the JavaScript folder, the Python folder, and the README. Jumping back over here, the JavaScript folder, the Python folder, and the README. We do have everything, and we have downloaded everything successfully. All right, the first thing I want to do is I don't want to be operating off the master branch. So if I bring up my terminal here at the bottom, there's something, this basically tells me that I'm on the master branch. If I don't know which branch I'm on, I'm just going to type in git branch, and that's going to list out all the branches that are currently available on my computer for this particular repo. And the one that's highlighted, this master here, is the one that I'm currently on. Master branch is mostly, it's kind of like your source of truth. So the way that I like to think about it is, let's imagine that somewhere deep in some faraway land, there is the original text, the original religious text, whatever you consider that to be. The original religious text, like the original one from the beginning of time. Would you want to make any markups or any changes directly on the original text? Probably not. You might want to do something like make a photocopy, or pretty much make a photocopy so that you're not messing with the original. So currently, when I'm saying that I'm on the master branch, even though I've forked over this repository already, I'm kind of messing with the original holy text, and I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do git checkout -b, And I'm going to create a new branch. So John's solution for Mike. And what you'll notice is that when I run this command, git branch tells me which branch I'm on. When I do git checkout -b, this -b basically says, I'm creating a new branch. This is the name of that new branch, and then check out to that branch. You'll see that this changed. And I can also type in git branch again, and you'll see that before there was only one branch, and now I've got two. I've got master, and I've got John's solution for Mike's. This branch over here, it's highlighted, so that's the one that I'm currently on. Any questions on, what questions do people have for this?
I just got a quick question. If you, let's say you went and you renamed your code folder, is that going to break the connection to,
it will not.
your repositories?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's repeat that question, Andrew, just so I understand what you're saying. So I created a code folder inside of my desktop, and let me just minimize everything for right now, just so people can actually see this. I am not actually, I don't think I can do that because I'm on a different window. Let me just move it. So if I click onto my desktop, there is an actual folder that says code on there. When I click on this, there will be, after this week and next week, there will be a lot of different repositories on here, a lot of different challenges that you're solving. Whenever I check out a new branch, it is per repo. So if I change the branch inside of linear search, it won't update anything else over here. So you don't have to worry about that. All right, let's continue. So I'm currently inside of VSCode, James. Tell me a little bit about VSCode. What is this window I've got down over here? I'm going to open up this linear search spec, and here, like, tell me a little bit about VSCode, what it is, what it does, and why we're using it.
So yeah, it's an IDE. It's an integrated development environment, which basically is just a fancy way of saying it's a good place, a nice place to write your code with a lot of extra tools that make your life easier as a developer. You've got an integrated terminal down at the bottom. You've got your file explorer on the left, and you've also got your main code window. You've got extensions on the left, stuff like that.
Yep, that's pretty much it. So we're using VSCode. You can choose to use something else if you want to. There are other great ones. You can use Sublime is pretty good. Atom is pretty good. There's PyCharm that's pretty good, but since we're doing multiple languages, we don't really want to use one thing that's specifically for Python. If you're a Vim user, that's cool as well. But the most popular one, the one that people have kind of agreed upon, is the most powerful and the one that honestly most people just use now, is VS Code. It is also owned by Microsoft, so Microsoft is slowly making its comeback and going to take over everything. But what VS Code is, it's an IDE. Like James said, it's an integrated development environment. There's a place for you to execute your code. That's this terminal down over here. There's a place for you to write your code that's up here, and then you're able to do a bunch of search and have extensions and make your code a little bit more, your code writing a little bit more easy. What we're going to do is we're going to solve linear search, and we're going to solve it using something called pseudocode. So what I know, because I've done this a lot, is that certain people have paired up or have started working on their own, and they did not at all plan before they started coding. They read the challenge and they're like, I'm just going to go ahead and start coding without any sort of a plan. And that's to be expected. And if you're in that camp, I'm sorry, because you probably spent a lot more time than you had to. What we're going to do today and going forward is basically spend a lot of time up front writing something called pseudocode. This is code for us as developers to kind of like read through and think about, like, these are the steps that we need to take in order to solve this particular problem. So let's read through it. Let's create some pseudocode. All right, so we've got the algorithm linear search. Just for time's sake, I know that everyone's done this one already, but basically it is, here's a giant haystack of numbers, and you have to find one individual number, which is the needle inside the haystack. So let's take a look here. We're going to write a basic linear search that takes in two arguments, the object you're searching for and the array that you're searching in. You also want to add some driver code, blah, blah. Okay, let's take a look. Let me jump back over here inside of linear search. All right, so it looks like we're going to just do the basic linear search. So let's say that we had a this list over here, and we want to find the first time that we see the word, the letter S. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to take a look here. And if I'm just trying to solve this as a regular human being, I see this entire list. And basically what I'm going to do is this the letter S? 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 I'm just going to keep repeating until I get to the very end. Once I find that letter, I'm going to return the index that it's currently in. If I don't find it, I'm going to return none. So with that, let's just do the regular linear search to begin with, and we're going to write some pseudocode. I'm going to comment this all out later, so the highlighting is going to be a little bit weird. I'm going to write every single step I need to take and spend a lot of time up here at the very beginning so that I don't have to worry about how to actually like write the code towards the end. So the more time you spend inside of your pseudocode, the less time you're actually going to spend really coding. So first things first, I like to have easy wins. Define a function called linear search. Hooray. Linear search takes 2 arguments, value to find and array to search through. All right. So we've got our, let's say that we're looking for, again, we've got, let's say we're looking for A, B, P, L, E, and we're looking for the letter E. So again, just so that everyone's on the same page, the value that we're looking for is, let's say, the letter E, and the array to search through is this letter, this broken up thing of apple. All right, what we're going to do is we are going to iterate through the array to search through, and then basically it's if the value to find is equal to the current value of the array to search through, return the index of the current value, else keep going. And basically, if you get to the end of the array, if you get to the end of the array and you haven't found the value to find, then return none. The idea here is I want to spend as much possible time here writing the pseudocode so that I spend less time writing the actual code later. And now that I've written out all this code, all this pseudocode, I've commented out, and we're just kind of executing on the steps that we spent a lot of time writing ahead of time. And I didn't spend a lot of time writing the pseudocode steps because I want to get to Roman numerals because I know that's the more challenging one. So number 1, define a function called linear search. Done. Linear search takes 2 arguments, the value to find and the array to search through. Next, we're going to iterate through the array to search through. Now, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to iterate because I just learned Python yesterday. And some of you may be wondering, like, why are we learning JavaScript? Why are we learning Python at the exact same time? Well, so I'm doing a little bit of family planning right now, and I'm thinking about what are things that I wish that I had stuck with when I was a kid. And I found out there are dual language schools inside of, in like some public high school systems, which means that they teach half the day in like Spanish or Chinese, and the other half of the day is in English. And I was like, wow, I wish I had gone, I wish I could learn like a new language now, but my brain is just so kind of old that I'm not able to learn new languages as quickly. So I want to set my kids up for the best possible thing. So if they can learn, the earlier on that they learn multiple languages, the more fluent they're going to be in both of those languages. And the same thing applies for you all. You probably haven't been developing software for very long, but if you get married to one particular language, it just kind of makes you very rigid, like me. Like, I'm old, I can't learn multiple languages. But I'm trying to say, like, if you can learn multiple languages right now and just understand, it's just a difference of syntax, but other than that, it's nothing to really worry about, then it's going to set you up for the rest of your career. You're not going to actually stick with one language for the remainder of your career. My first 4 years was in Ruby. That's all I developed, and I just did Ruby and Ruby on Rails, and then I was super scared to actually learn anything new. And then I got into JavaScript, then I got into Python, and I realized, oh, they're all exactly the same thing, but it was a hard shift for me, and I don't want that to happen to you. So I don't know how to iterate through an array, so I'm just going to Google it. Let's look at how to iterate through array in Python. Okay, and just like that, there are a ton of other people who have asked this exact same thing. Let's take a look at over here. We're going to look at Stack Overflow, so we learned a little bit about this. Stack Overflow, James, tell me a little bit about this. What do you know about Stack Overflow?
It's like a BBS, if you will, bulletin board kind of for code. A lot of different, threads on there where people post a question, and then there's some experienced developers on there and not so experienced developers on there that give answers.
Yep, that's a great explanation. I've actually never heard of it as a giant bulletin board. I just kind of thought of it as a big forum, but you're right, it's a giant bulletin board. So Stack Overflow is specific for coding, and you can ask any question that you want. And I guarantee you 99.99 times out of 100, the question that you're wondering has already been asked by other people. So the way to read this is that at the very top, there's a person who asks a question. How to iterate over arrays in Python 3. They ask a question, and a bunch of people underneath are able to answer. The check mark, the giant green check mark over here, is basically the author has agreed that this is the best answer. The number is basically how many people have upvoted or downvoted this particular answer. What you'll see is 39 other people said, okay, this person, Mr. I can't pronounce that, Mr. A over here has given an answer, and we agree that this is a great answer. So we're going to give it a thumbs up over here. So let's take a look. So for I in array, sum equals the sum. There's a range. This is not exactly what I'm looking for. But we were able to go over Stack Overflow, how to iterate over a list in Python. All right, so we've got a list of 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 using a for loop for I in list print I. So for every single individual element, I can do 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So I'm able to get and print every single thing, every single element inside this array. So let's just grab this for right now. It might be useful, it might not be useful. James and I will figure it out. I'm just gonna dump it over here. And we're gonna alter this a little bit. So we don't need this list because we already have our array to search through. So I'm gonna just copy this, throw it over here. Let me get rid of all of this stuff. All right, so for I in array to search through, I'm not a really big fan of the letter I. It's not terribly intuitive for me. So I'm just going to say for, let's say, element in array to search through, print I. And let's just see if this runs. Let's just take this little bit of code from online and just kind of piecemeal it together. All right, so let's say I'm going to run linear search of, doesn't even matter, A and array to search through. Scroll down a little bit. James, tell me about how do I run linear search like this file over here?
You can type Python, Python 3, and then space the name of the file.
Name of the file. All right. So let me run Python linear search.py, and everything blows up. Why is that not working? I'm super frustrated.
Let's see. Are you in the correct directory?
Am I in the correct directory?
I don't believe so. I think you need to cd into Python.
Yep. Let's list out everything. You'll see that I'm at the root directory. And if I can't run this particular Python file, because this particular Python file is within this folder here. So let me jump into Python, go press up, 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 and then I can run this command. So we are able to get every single element. We're able to print every single element. All right, we're making some good progress. So we're going to iterate through the array to search through. If the value is equal to the current array, return the index. Otherwise, keep going. If you get to the end and you haven't found it, return none. All right, let's just do number 3. If the value defined is equal to the element, then I'm going to return the index. Where's the index? Oh no, this is not working for me. So what we've got here is we're iterating through the actual array, but we're not keeping track of the index. There are 2 ways to solve this. first one over here, we could do index equals 0, return index, and then at the end of your for loop, you just do index plus plus. That's one way to go about it. And at the very end, we can return none. This is one way of solving it. So again, let's take a look. Define a function called linear search. It takes in 2 arguments, the value you're looking for and the array that you're searching through. We're going to iterate over the array to search through, but we also have to keep track of the index. If the value defined is equal to the current value of the array, which is element, return the index of the current value. To fix my spacing. Otherwise, keep going. And if you get to the very end of the array and you haven't found the value defined, return none. This means that if this runs all the way through and this return hasn't executed yet, I'm just going to return this over here. This is one way of going about it. Let's see if it runs with my spec file. So I've got my spec file here. This is a series of tests that I'm running, basically saying that, hey, when I run linear search of, I'm looking for the number 3 in this array of 1, 2, 3, it should return the index of 3, which is 2. I'm looking for 4 inside of 1, 2, 3. I'm looking for 13 inside of 1, 2, 3, and it should return none because it's not there. So let's run through this. Let me clear the screen because it's hard to see at the very bottom. I'm going to run Python linear search underscore and just press tab to complete. And this doesn't work. It's plus plus JavaScript. Again, this is all syntax stuff. So let's do index plus equals 1. That should probably solve it. And I get 3 trues. This is one way of solving it. Another way to solve it, if you want to get a little fancier, for index, an element inside of enumerate, I am going to just do this. And I think that's all that I need to do. Let's run it one more time. A bunch of trues again. So enumerate is something that's built into Python. It allows you to have access to both the index, which is the like which individual like index are you at? So this is index number 0 for this 1, index number 1 for the 2, index 2 for the 3. It gives you access to the index, and it also gives you access to the element that you're talking about. So I have both things here, so I don't have to do that extra little bit of code. All right, so I feel pretty comfortable with this. I'm happy with my solution, and I want to move it from my current machine, which is, it only lives currently on my machine here, and I want to share it with everybody else. So tell me a little bit, James, about what are the steps that I need to run through in order to push it from my machine onto the internet?
So probably run git diff first and see where you're at with what's added into your.
I'm going to run one thing beforehand. I'm just going to run git status to look a little bit about what I've already done. So git status shows from the time that I've downloaded it and from the last commit, what changed between now and then. It keeps track of all that for you. It looks like you see this red thing over here. I've modified something, and you said run git diff. What does git diff actually do?
I think it shows you the difference, between the files.
Yep, I'm just going to run this. I'm just going to run git diff. It looks through all the changes that you made. The changes that you made is going to be are going to be made in green, and the changes you added are going to be made in green, and the things that you removed are going to be inside of red. So I'm just kind of reading through. Yeah, these are things I've added. We've added this together. We removed your code here. Looks like there's an extra space over there. That's what this red space is. So if I go back into my code, I can get rid of that. I'm just going to press Q to get out and run git diff again. You'll see that before there was that little red space, but now it's removed here. Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with this. I added my pseudocode. I removed this line. I added all of this. I feel pretty comfortable. So I ran git diff. Let me run git status again just to show what's going on. How do I add all my changes so I can push it up, James?
Git add dot.
I don't want to do that because I don't want to add everything. I'm also going to add all the files for PyCache here, which is going to be a disaster.
Oh, so you want to add the spec file? You could just do git add star.py. We'll add everything with a Python extension.
I don't know. All right. So let me show you exactly what I mean. If I do git add dot, that means add everything that's been changed. There are 2 things that have been changed. There's a linear search.py, and there's also a PyCache folder. This is automatically added by Python to make this whole folder run faster. But it's only mostly for your machine. You don't want it for everybody else. But if I do git add dot and I run git status again, you'll notice that there is, I guess it's not the worst case, but I did add something I don't really want to add this for everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do git checkout to remove this one file. That didn't do it. Git rest. Oh, it tells me how to get rid of it. Git restore dash stage, and I want to get rid of this particular file. And if I run git status again, you'll see that I only have one thing. So git add space dot is probably fine for most of the challenges right now, but you generally don't want to get into a habit of, hey, remove or add everything. You want to be very specific. So my recommendation here is just to do git add and then the name of the file. All right, so I've added it over here. Before it was red, and now it is green, meaning that I have actually added those changes in. Now I want to write a little bit of a commit message. It's something useful for me so that I know exactly what's happened so far. Let's write git commit -m with a message of solved this in Python for Platoon. As much as possible, you want commit messages that are very, very descriptive so you know exactly what's happened. Because the alternative is commit logs from last night. Now, there are a bunch of commit logs here from other projects around the world. I don't think they change these very often, but it kind of shows you this is what happens. This is not terribly useful because I don't know what's actually changed inside of there. So imagine I'm going through my Platoon's linear search, I'm going through all the commits, and it's not terribly descriptive. In the case that I need to roll back ever, I don't know what I actually did at every single time. If I come back over here, I was like, I don't know what this means. I don't really know what this is. Added the full project. Like, what is that? What did I add every single bit of code in one go? So there's a bunch of not useful commit messages. You don't want to do that. You want to be as descriptive as possible, and that's what I've got over here. All right, so I've added my changes. I've committed my changes, and is it on GitHub right now?
No.
No. All right. How do I move it? How do I upload it? What is the command, the git command for upload?
Git push master origin. So you're pushing to your master branch.
Git push origin. I agree with you. So you want to push it to where you downloaded it from, but I don't want to push it to master. I want to push it to the branch that I'm currently on. So I'm going to push it to John's Solutions for Mike. Origin refers to where you cloned it down from. You can check that again by doing git remote space -v. That will show you where you are fetching, where you're pulling from, and where you're pushing to. This is where you're downloading from. This is where you're uploading to. Origin is basically an alias for this particular line here.
Okay.
So let me go back. I'm inside of linear search now, and GitHub will pretty much automatically detect that, hey, you pushed up something new from your machine onto GitHub. I'm going to compare and pull request. I'm going to open this. You won't have all of these issues that I have because I have it. I'm going to basically open a pull request, which basically means I've made some changes. I'd like for you to review them. If they're good enough to review, I'd like you to merge them in. So I'm comparing John J. Young's linear search, John's solution for Mike's, to the base, to the master branch of Mike Platoon. We can take a look at all the code that we've got over here. It's just 4 lines long. I feel good with it. I'm going to pull request. Before there were 19 pull requests. When I hit it now, there are now 20.
Hey, John.
Yep.
So when, say somebody who's in charge of checking the pull requests and they need to run a feature to see if it actually works, you know, from a junior developer or something, what do they do when they get the pull request? Like, how do they take that code and run it?
Let me try that. Let me do a few things. Let's see, how are we doing on time? All right. I'm going to ignore the Python fundamentals because I only have an hour and 15. I'm going to get rid of this. Let's do a quick review, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. All right. So what challenges should I be looking at? Let's take a look. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to simulate what actually happens during a code review, and I'm going to review someone's code and see if it works on my particular machine. All right, so let's take a look at factorial. Factorial is easy. I like this. Factorial is pretty simple. It's 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So if I give you a number inside of factorial, I'm going to multiply that number times that number minus 1 all the way until you get to 1. There are 23 pull requests. Fantastic. Let's take a look. I'm going to pull someone at random. Thank you, James. I'm going to move on to Jarrett now. So Jarrett, which person? Is this you, Jarrett?
No, that's the other Jarrett.
Okay.
Should say Yang and Jarrett's solution somewhere. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Let's take a look at Jarrett's solution. All right, so let's talk about what actually pull requests are. Pull requests are basically requests that people have made to change the original code. So whenever you make changes and you open a pull request, you're saying that the code that I wrote, I want to update the original thing, and this is like, these are the changes that I made, and this is why I think they are good. If I go here and I click this merge, this big green merge pull request button at the very end, what will actually happen is all the changes that Jarrett and Yang made yesterday are going to actually live inside of the factorial repo over here. So all their changes will be like the new master. This is a good way for us just to kind of see like what are the things you've actually done here. All right, so we've got 2 changes. We've got it in, oh my God, okay. Let's take a look. So I'm going to look just at the Python ones for today. So we've got a factorial. It takes in a number. If it's less than 1 or equal to 1, return 1. Otherwise, you're going to do a recursive way of going about it. This is probably fine. I have no issues with this. I have nothing to write about this. But in the case, let's say that I wanted to get this particular code from Jarrett. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this down. Let me cd out 1 or 2 levels. I'm going to go out 1 level. So I used to be at the Python folder. Now I'm going to linear search. I'm going to go out 1 more. Now I'm inside of code in general. Let me close all of this stuff out. I'm going to git clone from Platoon. I'm going to cd into factorial. I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to restart VSCode with the current window. And what you'll notice is that when I go inside of factorial right now, there's nothing inside of there. I don't have Jarrett's code whatsoever. And the reason behind that is that Jarrett's code actually lives at Jarrett Hosey on the master branch. When I run git remote -v, this shows me all the places I can push and pull to. I've only got Platoon, and I've only got Platoon to download or fetch, or upload or push to. And that's this origin over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find Jarrett's actual, like where he cloned it to. I'm going to grab that link. This is a little bit more advanced, but since James asked, I'm going to answer. I'm going to do git remote add. I'm going to call this Jarrett and paste this inside of there. What this is doing is when I originally cloned down, origin is hard-coded to be the place that I downloaded from. If there's another place that I want to push to, I'm going to add it as another host over here. So I'm going to do git remote add, and I'm going to name this one Jarrett, and I'm going to paste this link. When I run git remote -v 1 more time, you'll see that there are 2 places that I can push and pull from. I've got origin, which is where Platoon is, and I also have Jarrett. I can name Jarrett whatever I want. I decided to name it Jarrett so that it's pretty easy for me to remember. Now let me do, I think it's going to be git checkout Jarrett master. Oh man, it's like git remote. It's not. I don't know. Let's Google it. I don't really know. Because this doesn't happen too often where people are forking and stuff. I'm just doing forking so that you can't write directly to Platoon. Check out forked branch locally. Check out a branch without a fork. How to pull remote branch from somebody else's repo. Perfect. That seems like something I want. I've got a project hosted on GitHub, which someone has forked. On their fork, they've created a new branch called foo and made some changes. How do I pull their foo into a new branch and also foo? Okay, cool. All right, let's take a look. Git remote add coworker, and then that's kind of what I did earlier. Git remote add Jarrett. Git fetch coworker and git checkout. Okay, that might work. Let's grab this. Let's dump this over here for right now. Let me comment that out. Actually, let me just get rid of that altogether and just post it here. Git fetch Jarrett. And if I fetch Jarrett, that might actually doesn't do it. Git checkout. I think I could just do Jarrett master. Switching to Jarrett master. Now I can take a look at his code, which is right there. That's one way of going about it. All right, I think this is an appropriate time to take a break. We'll be back at 9:25.